Hello there, this is Cindy at cindybdesigns.com. Thank you for joining me today. The card on the left is my sample, the card on the right is what we are doing. And I'm going to give you tips and tricks along the way of what I do to make non-traditional holiday cards. And it's one of my favorite things to do because it's out of the box and not expected. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. For my sample, I use the thick basic white. And we are going to be using the Celebrate Sunflowers with the sunflower dies. Only one image in there of a large sunflower that I'm showing you right now. And I have a tip to line that up perfectly too, along with the Forever and Always stamp set, along with the Always dies. And we are going to be using a sentiment along with the Love die cut. So for this card here, I used a thick, very vanilla card base, A2, top folding, 4.5 across by 5.25 down. And our sunflower is going to be so saffron. I should have changed that to something like, I'll get there in a second. That was crushed curry. That is from the Love DSP. That's a foil sheet. And I do have an adhesive sheet on the back of that. That's really important. But as I start getting into this video more, I'll tell you more what I did. That little bumblebee is from January 2020 Paper Pumpkin Kit of I'll Be Yours. They're good for a year. I haven't received my January one in the mail yet, so it's still good. But we're going to be doing some heat embossing with white powder. Lots of adhesives there. We only need the Tombow Mono in my left hand, Versamark, basic black Stampin' Right marker. Put 2 of our mini glue dots on the back of the wings of our little bumblebee there. That's a little sheet of wax paper I have from my kitchen, and those are the gilded gems from the annual catalog. So we are going to get started. So it's obvious what I'm doing here, but I'm looking outside when it's sunny. 45 mile an hour per winds, and it's hailing while it's sunny. That's the first for me. So I am bringing in So Saffron, and that arrow up there that I did with a Sharpie, that is how I line my stamps and dies up, especially when they're this large. So I zoomed in, and we are going to heat emboss that, and I'm going to lay down my embossing buddy, which is retired, but I still use it. Cornstarch will do the exact same thing, and I'm going to ink up our sunflower with Versamark ink there. Now, if I could change this, because I did change my card base from, I was going to say Whisper White, but now it's Basic White, from that into very vanilla, I probably should have gone Daffodil Delight rather than So Saffron, because as you see me assembling this card, the very vanilla and So Saffron kind of seem to blend a little bit. That's why I do a sample so I can tweak it along the way. So anyhow, I decided to lay down the Versamark again because when I tilted it towards the sun, I need that even ink application, especially to heat emboss an image this large. So got it down, and now I'm pulling in our white embossing powder. I'm going to sprinkle that over our image real quick, tap off the excess. Grab my angled paintbrush, and I'm looking at it, make sure I don't have any little strays or stragglers there, and I grab the paintbrush with the sentiment. Heat tool to emboss, okay, I take that back. You want to use setting to, with this new video program, I cannot see ahead to keep up, so yeah, I'm struggling. And I'm moving that heat tool around. You do not want to lay your paper down on your work surface because that air has to go through in order to get it embossed. I'm chucking it in the sun, tilting it left and right, and see what I have. There we go. Take your Swiffer to wipe off the embossing buddy powder, and there we go. So I did the same thing with the die cut of making that little tick mark there at the very top, and that's why I marked it when I laid down the image, because that way, yeah, skip intro, that way I can just line everything up rather than constantly turning it around, like we've all done. So I took it off screen to the Big Shot and went ahead and die cut that out. Now I'm bringing in a piece of crushed curry cardstock along with the You More sentiment from Forever and Always. Lay down the embossing buddy again, putting down the stamp, making sure it's even on that little teeny tiny half inch sentiment strip. You know, looking on the door of the Stamparatus. And then after I put my fingers on it, when I did the powder, it did work out. Pulling back in the Versamark, and then I think I'm going to lay that down twice because I want to make sure that my ink is even, so the powder is even and everything works out even. And I'm laying down the powder. Then I'm going to go ahead and take that off screen to get it heat embossed for you. And that's where the paintbrush comes in. And I switched to the angled right, there was like a speck right above the more, above the M. So got that off and got it heat embossed, and now I'm bringing it back in. So my sample card was pretty stark white, and that's why I brought in our basic black Stampin' Right marker, and I'm going to flick little specks on there. And I showed you how to position it before in another video and this one. If I had done that with the Whisper White, I think I would have been fine. But this is where you see how it all kind of blends together a little bit. As you saw in my pictures, it didn't, I mean, you can see a difference, but this is why I do a sample card. So I'm laying down our sunflower and I'm marking it on the back so I know where to cut it because I want my edges to be even. And I'm bringing in our mini Stampin' trimmer that a lot of my new demos got last year when they signed up during celebration. This year you get over 200 sheets of 6x6 paper that's coming out in the new catalog in 5 or so months. So I highly recommend doing that. So now I'm just lining everything up and I'm putting that little dot over there on the right with a pencil so you can see how, you know, I wanted to line it back up again. Looks like I'm putting a lot of Tombow Mono on there. I'm really not. And I don't end up using the seal like I said earlier. So again, I'm going back to getting everything down, and then I'm going to grab one of our larger blocks, lay that on top, move it aside to let it set up. So this sentiment panel I'm doing here, I'm kind of doing it wonky a little bit because I know I have to pull the right side of it back. So that is why I'm looking at it to where it's not quite centered, but the sentiment is more over towards the left-hand side. So after I do that even cut there, I can pull it back towards the right and then have the same amount of crushed curry cardstock on the left and the right. And I mean, I cheat my way through this like I do everything else. Put a pencil mark on the back of that, bring in the baby trimmer again, or the mini trimmer, cut that off, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply our liquid adhesive, Tombow Mono to the back of that, grab my tweezers, and then get it positioned on our designer series paper, which is from that big old Valentine's suite. And of course, I don't remember the name, but again, supplies, everything, dimensions over at cindybdesigns.com. The direct link is underneath this blog post here. So got that down, and I'm, set that aside to let that set up. I'm pulling the backs of the glue dots, which are from a paper pumpkin kit, off the back of our little bee there, adhering that to the card. I do end up coloring in the little white spaces there on the bee, but not the wings, with a basic black Stampin' Right marker, just to bring out a little bit more of that black. And it turned out really cute too. So I'm adhering our sentiment panel down to our card there. I lined the card up at the very bottom with a groove on my desk to make sure it was straight, and it was. Got that set up, so now I'm bringing in our foiled sheet, our Love die cut, And that is going to go through the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I have the adhesive sheet on the back of the foil. Then you have the foil. Then I laid down the wax paper and the die on top of it, and that's when I ran it through. Now this die will come out in two different pieces. You have a large L there, and then you have like the O part. And now I am just poking out the leftovers of it. And that's like a little bit tedious, but they are coming out. So now the sun is gone away, and it's just, there was like a blizzard. Yeah, it's gonna be like a long couple days, but you know, I'm prepared. I have food and everything like that. Puppy's got food, we're good. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm hibernating. So that is how we are looking. And I'm pulling the backing off of the adhesive sheet there on the L, bringing back in our card, and lining everything up there as you see. And I'm going to start to slow it down here in a little bit because we are actually getting into the home stretch, and this is such a super easy card to make. And I'm going to talk as you'll watch me lay everything down. But like I said at the beginning, I'm a huge fan of non-traditional cards. I love making them and going out of the box. This is a Valentine's Day card. It could be a friendship card, anything. Okay, Whisper White, you know, on the right, so I'm kind of looking how I had everything laid out. And when I do something like that, I kind of keep it simple, you know, 3 or 4 colors, a good strong neutral, and I have Whisper White there, embossing powder, but yet a very vanilla cardstock. Do not be afraid to mix your neutrals. It is completely okay. So, rule of odds, I'm going to lay down 3 of the Gilded Gems. And this is when I figure out that there's actually 3 different sizes in this embellishment pack. And I really wanted to lay down like a large one at the bottom there, over on the right, but it was a medium-sized one. It still worked out though, because the right bottom of my card there is kind of loaded up a little bit. So when I add the largest Gilded Gem, and they're gold as I'm comparing it right now, it works out because all I have at the top left is the little bumblebee, which I colored in too with the basic black marker, but not the wings. And then I'm just laying down our other 2 small gems. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's card and have gotten something out of it. Stay warm. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Leave me a message. And if everything works out in my brain for next week's video, I have a really cool one for you. So again, thank you for joining me today. Have a great weekend. And I will see you again next week. And don't forget to subscribe to Paper Pumpkin because I use them all the time, all year round. It's a great value.